So Rich, how long have you been eating vegan?
It's been about a little over 7 years at this point.
Okay, and you and your beautiful wife, Julie, are both adamant followers of veganism. Has she been eating vegan for a long time?
She actually had always been eating much healthier than I,
Okay.
but she wasn't fully plant-based until maybe I'd been doing it about 2 years. So
Okay.
she came on board a little bit afterwards, but she had always set the bar, pretty high in terms of healthy living prior to that.
Right. Can you share some of the reasons? I mean, I know your book tells your fascinating story, and amazing just hearing your story. Would you mind sharing some of the things that inspired this way of living for you?
Yeah, sure. I'm 47 years old right now, and what happened to me was for many, many years I was very focused on the corporate, climbing the corporate ladder and like getting the right job and impressing my boss and moving up and kind of in pursuit of that American dream, right? Like get into the good, study hard, get into the good college, get the good job, do the right thing, make the right choices. And I'd done that for many years, and I was a senior associate at a big, prestigious law firm in Los Angeles, and was on the partnership track and had met my wife, and we were having kids, and we built our dream house in Malibu Canyon. So from an outsider's perspective, I really was on the cusp of achieving the American dream, for lack of a better phrase. But during this process, I really had overlooked my health and my fitness, and inside of me, I had this hole. Like I felt like I was living someone else's life. Although I was very happily married and I loved my kids, of course, and all of that, I felt like, is this it? Like this is the thing that my whole life people had sort of said, if you do these things, you're going to be a happy person. And I couldn't say that I was happy or fulfilled or, and I looked around at the people that I was working with, and I didn't aspire to have any of their lives. And that created a lot of dissonance in my life, a lot of dissatisfaction, and I got depressed, and I was lethargic, and I put on quite a bit of weight, and I was eating what I like to call the window diet. Like if you're in your car and you roll down the window and they can hand it to you through the window, you eat it, and that's how I ate and lived for many years. Jack in the Box, Burger King, Pizza Hut, Taco Bell, you name it, nachos, cheeseburgers. These were the foods that I love and really subsisted on. And by the time I was 39 years old, I was about 50 pounds overweight, 50 pounds heavier than I am now. And certainly not obese by any kind of Biggest Loser standard by which we judge, people that are overweight these days.
Right.
But certainly very heavy and, look like a guy who's working too hard in a big law firm, really. And it all kind of came to a head shortly before I turned 40. I had worked late that night, I distinctly remember, and kind of did the drive-through thing on the way home and got home to my house, and my family was already asleep, and I sat in front of the TV and was watching Law and Order reruns, eating McDonald's cheeseburgers until I started to doze off on the couch and thought I better go to bed. And halfway up the staircase up to my bedroom, I had to pause, and I was out of breath. I buckled over, sweat on my brow, tightness in my chest, and it was a real scary moment where I thought I might be having a heart attack, and thankfully I wasn't having a heart attack at that moment, but I knew that I was in really bad physical shape, and it was one of those moments in your life that you're lucky to experience, if you can have one of these moments where you're able to recognize, like, this is a pivotal moment where I need to change, and I actually want to change, and I was able to say, this is, very important. If I blow this off, then tomorrow I'll just forget about it and I'll keep doing what I'm doing. So I knew I needed to make some very dramatic and also very specific changes. For me, the idea of saying, I should probably eat a little bit better, or maybe I should go to the gym once in a while. Those are all fine aspirations or intentions, but they don't really have a lot of meaning, at least for me. There's no teeth to that. There's no accountability to that. There's nothing specific about that. And I knew I needed to do something different and dramatic. And so that's kind of, in a nutshell, what sort of set the stage for what ultimately became my embrace of a plant-based diet, which, trust me, is the last thing that I ever thought that I would do. You say, oh, you're a vegan, athlete, and your wife's vegan, and like the word vegan is a tricky thing. I think when just the word in and of itself, the word vegan, I think for a lot of people, it immediately conjures up in a very specific image in their mind of a person,
Yeah.
And maybe that's a person they identify with, and maybe that's the last person on earth they identify with. And for me, when I think of vegan, I think of like a guy with dreadlocks who's kicking a hacky sack and following the Grateful Dead around or something like that. It's like, and that's fine.
Yeah.
I like those dudes.
Right.
But that's not that's not who I am.
Right.
So that lifestyle never really appealed to me. So that's another reason why I like to use the word plant-powered.
I do too. I think it's such a moving, powerful term that there is power in plant-based food.
Yes. It's not a wimpy thing.
No.
If you want to be strong, if you want to be physically at your best, if you want to be bulletproof to Western disease, eating plants is the way to do it. And being plant-powered in your lifestyle is the solution.
Exactly. And speaking of power, you have certainly put it to test with some of the endurance challenges that you've done. The Ultraman race, which you've completed, is it twice that you've competed in?
Yeah, I've completed that race 2 times, in 2008 and 2009.
And would you just describe the distance of the Ultraman?
Sure. So many of you out there might know what an Ironman is, and Ironman is a triathlon, a very long triathlon, which during the course of a day you swim 2.4 miles, you ride your bike 112 miles, and then you run a marathon. The Ultraman is about twice that distance. It's a stage race, a 3-day stage race that circumnavigates the big island of Hawaii, which is a very big island. It's about the size of Connecticut. The first day, you swim 6.2 miles in the ocean, and then you ride your bike 90 miles. Second day, you ride your bike 171 miles, and the third day, you run 52.4 miles, and you kind of end up where you started. You go all the way around this big island over this 3-day period.
Right. I'm glad you did it, not me. Although I will say,
so you don't have to.
Thank you. Thanks for taking one for all of the human race, Rich.
Right.
And then, if that wasn't enough, now, and of course you did this on a plant-based diet. Yeah.
Yes.
And so if that wasn't enough, then you set out to achieve this unbelievable human feat, the Epic 5. And this was
in 2010. Yeah. So essentially what happened was kind of these endurance quests emanated out of this amazing experience I had when I switched to eating a plant-based diet. I felt like my body had been returned to its natural state. I had a tremendous resurgence in vitality. I felt so good, and it was so dramatic, and it happened in such a short period of time that it made me really get in touch with just how resilient the human body is. Because if I could abuse myself with terrible lifestyle and dietary habits, and I'm also a recovering alcoholic, so there's some alcohol and drug abuse in there too, to kind of add miles to the odometer. But by kind of changing my diet and embracing, just eating plants to feel so good so quickly, it made me think that, wow, that happened so quickly and so dramatically. What if I was to really test that? Like, how far can I push my body? How much faster or stronger can I be? And that led me into these crazy races. The Epic 5 that I did in 2005 came out of a continuing quest to answer this question, just how resilient is the human body. And I felt like I had answered that in 2009 with Ultraman, because I did really well in that race. I was leading the race until I crashed. I ended up 6th in that race and did quite well. But a friend of mine, Jason Lester, who was a fellow Ultraman competitor, had it in his brain that he wanted to come up with this crazy endurance challenge and do it, and he wanted me to do it with him, and it involved doing an Ironman a day on each of the 5 Hawaiian islands and to complete it in 5 days. So island to island to island, Ironman a day, making the last flight off the island, getting to the next island, getting enough sleep, getting up and doing it again.
I just want to repeat and just pause and just ponder that for one moment. That's one Ironman a day, 5 days in a row.
On 5 Hawaiian, on 5 different islands.
On 5 different islands.
Yeah.
Okay, sounds beautiful.
Yeah, it does.
Oh my God, that's just, it's really unbelievable. And this had never been done before.
It had never been done before, and that was part of what made it so appealing, because it seemed like every crazy endurance challenge that you could ever dream up, somebody had already tried it and done it, and here was something that kind of seemed obvious, and yet no one had ever thought to do it, and certainly hadn't achieved doing it. And so we set out to do it to see if it could be done, really. It wasn't about how fast we can do it or anything like that. It was really just 2 guys, and I give Jason all the credit for planning it and coming up with the idea. It was really his baby. I was there to go along for the ride, but I was honored to be able to do it with him.
And the fact that you did it on a plant-based diet is just amazing. And so just thinking about that, knowing that the human body is that resilient, and especially on this type of fuel, I'd love to dispel some of the myths out there, because I know you get this question all the time. How do you get enough protein?
Yes, not a day goes by where I'm not asked this question: where do you get your protein?
Right.
And I have to say that when I first started this journey, I didn't know the answer to that question either. I was like, how am I getting my protein? I feel great, but this kind of contravenes everything I've ever been taught or thought I knew about nutrition, because I've been told that, milk does a body good, and if you want strong muscles, you've got to eat, animal protein in order to, build those muscles to be that athlete.
And speaking of, just to interject there, I love how you say being vegan or plant-based means you eat nothing with a face and nothing
with a mother.
Nothing with a face and nothing with a mother, except the Mother Earth.
That's right, the Mother Earth. Right? Does she have a face, though? I don't know.
Many faces.
Yeah, many faces, right? The face of all of us. Yeah, and so I had to kind of discover this for myself, because despite the fact that when I started training for these events, I was improving at an incredibly rapid rate. I was recovering more quickly in between my workouts. I wasn't getting sick. I wasn't getting overtrained, and I just felt amazing. And the arc of how quickly I was getting fit was very dramatic. And yet at the same time, in the back of my mind, I'm like, yeah, but protein. So I researched it myself. And when we talk about protein, what we're really talking about is amino acids, right? Amino acids are the building blocks of protein. And there's 20 amino acids, 9 of which we call the essential amino acids, because those are the amino acids that our bodies cannot synthesize on their own. They have to come from the foods that we eat. And traditionally, we've been raised with this idea of getting those 9 essential amino acids through eating animal flesh. But in truth, most of these animals are getting those 9 essential amino acids from the plants that they're eating. So when we're eating a plant-based diet, we're really just eating lower on the food chain, closer to nature, right? And we're able to get those same amino acids and to build protein and muscle in the same way as if we were eating animal products, but we're doing it without all the saturated fat and without all the cholesterol. So I actually think it's a better way to get your protein.
Sure. Just would you share some of the things that you like to eat?
Yeah, sure. I mean, the other thing I would say quickly too is that there's a lot of misconceptions about protein intake, and most Americans are probably eating about 2 to 3 times more protein than they need, or what's advisable, or what's healthy. If 10% of your calories are coming from protein, then that's about right. You don't really need to eat any more than that. When I'm eating a well-balanced, wide variety of plant-based foods, I'm automatically getting about 10%. And some of the foods that I like to eat that are higher in protein are things like quinoa, which is, that sounds exotic, doesn't it?
I love it. I love quinoa.
Yeah, it's like a grain, but it's actually a seed. Lentils, beans of all kinds, black beans, kidney beans, and dark leafy greens. And I love to make smoothies in my Vitamix blender, so I eat a lot of kale, a lot of spinach. I'll put some superfoods in there like spirulina, which is actually very high in protein by weight. So a lot of fun, exotic, tasty foods. And the more I kind of walk this path and experiment and play around with these foods, it's amazing how much my taste buds change and my cravings change. And I really look forward to that smoothie, and I crave it. And I'm a guy who just couldn't get through the day without eating a pizza or a cheeseburger. So, it's pretty dramatic. And my message really is, like, if I could experience such a dramatic shift, that I think, there's something in this for all of us.
I agree. Again, just the endurance races that you've done, and as you say, felt better, on this diet, or it's so impressive, and it certainly inspires, I'm sure, many people to give it a try. And you and Julie now have 4 children. And what are their ages?
They are 18, 17, 10, and 6.
Okay.
Yeah.
And are they vegan as well?
They are. The 2 older ones are boys, teenage boys, and they're fully plant-based. They love it, and it's been an evolution. It wasn't always that way. The 2 little girls are about 90% there, and the reason for that is that the way that we've chosen to raise them is to not create a lot of rules and restrictions around diet. Essentially, what we focus on is just trying to shop for and stock and prepare and provide a wide variety of very healthy, fresh food options for our kids. And so we bring them to the supermarket, and when we're shopping, we talk about why we're choosing this food or what the nutrients are in this food that we're choosing. And then when we go home, we involve them, especially the little girls, in the preparation of the recipes. So they learn how to cook, and they learn what does this taste like, and how is that going to change the flavor of this. And the more we do that, the more of an emotional connection the kids develop to not just the food that they're eating, but the whole sort of process of how the food gets from the farm all the way to your plate.
Sure.
We spent time on an organic farm last winter in Hawaii, and that was a great experience for the kids to learn about how to grow food and things like that. And so it's not about you can't eat this or we don't want you to eat that. It's more about, hey, let's all like learn about this together and make it fun. And so, if the little girls are going to a birthday party and they have birthday cake and cupcakes and pizza, I'm not going to be the dad, and Julie's not going to be the mom who says you can't eat that. They can eat whatever they want,
right.
And on the ride home, if they have a stomach ache, then that's something for us to talk about. But it's about empowering your kids and providing them with the tools and the education. And as a result of not creating rules, that we're taking all the power out of it. So there's nothing to rebel against. So you don't have a teenager saying, screw you, I'm 16 now and I'm going to eat whatever I want. It's like, you can eat whatever you want now.
Right.
It's your body. Respect your body. We're teaching you to respect your body.
Yeah, I love that. You're setting a good example, getting them involved, as you say, and educating them.
And I think that's an important point, setting a good example, because you have to walk your walk.
Totally.
You can't tell your kids they can't eat this or that when you're waking up in the middle of the night to eat a pint of Ben and Jerry's.
Right.
And if you think your kids don't know that you're doing that, you'd be surprised. Kids are very attuned to their parents' habits, and they know when the message that's being delivered to them is authentic or whether it's a straw man.
Right. They always say children will do what you do, not what you say.
Yes.
So, what would you say? What would your message be to all the parents out there that say, oh, I would do that, but my child will only eat mac and cheese, or I know my children only like chicken fingers or hot dogs?
Right. Yeah. First of all, I want to recognize that that's a reality, and that's tricky and difficult. The flip side of that, the very kind of snide, kind of flip comment that I could make is that's like a teacher saying, or that's like a parent saying, well, my kid's never going to read that textbook in school. He only likes comic books. As parents, it's our job to sort of set the guidelines and the parameters for the kids about what's okay and what's not. There are so many foods that didn't exist when we were kids that are so poisonous to young people.
Right.
And these foods are specifically designed to activate the pleasure centers in our brains.
Right.
Whether it's whether it's the aspartame in the Diet Coke, or the potato chips, the Doritos, or the Cheetos, or the whatever snack food it is, there's a lot of money and science that's going into these products that create this habitual response. And it's not dissimilar from the way that the tobacco companies behaved in the 1970s.
Right.
And with our children, these young years are when those habits get formed. And once they're formed, they become very difficult to break. I mean, just look at, everybody who struggles with weight, everybody who struggles with that craving they just can't break. Well, let's focus on creating good habits early so we don't have to break those.
Yeah.
And there's so many healthy options now that if you can start to phase in healthy options for your kids and start removing those things, those Lunchables or whatever it is that they're eating that aren't serving them, it's really important as a parent to kind of take charge of that and deal with it, because these are habits they're going to have their whole life.
Yeah, I love that you took the kids to the organic farm in Hawaii, because so many of us have no idea where the food comes from these days. So to create that connection and to understand how it gets into that box.
Right. Well, the system is specifically designed to prevent us from understanding that, because if we did understand that, then that would be information, and that information would give the consumers more power than some of these companies might be comfortable with us having.
Right. Right. But it's up to us, though. Right, as you say, we've got to be the responsible ones and make the good decisions. And so now you're sharing so much of this wonderful information that you've earned through your experience in your podcast, the Rich Roll Podcast. Can you tell me a little bit about that?
Yes, the Rich Roll Podcast.
The Rich Roll Podcast.
That's where it's all happening, man. Come on. I have a podcast show. I started it about a year ago. It's a weekly program where I do a very long form interview. Sometimes it's 2 hours, and I think the longest one I did was maybe 3.5 hours. I get a guest on and we just talk until we run out of things to talk about. And I've had all different kinds of people on, all related to health and wellness and fitness. So it's not a specifically plant-based podcast.
Sure.
I have a lot of plant-based nutritionists and athletes and dietitians and the like on the show, but I have all different kinds of people. I have world-class athletes, I have entrepreneurs, I have paleo people, I have CrossFit people, because I'm genuinely curious.
Sure.
You know, I think we're at a very kind of Malcolm Gladwell tipping point moment in wellness right now, where people are really looking for solid answers, real solutions, sustainable solutions for their health and their fitness. And you know, we've become very savvy, especially with the internet, where we can see through the transparent sales pitch for the diet fad or the health fad or the fitness trick. And so my podcast is really about just sharing my experience, people that I've had the good fortune of meeting along the way, and having people on about issues that I don't have all the answers. You know, I
Right.
want to know what this guy says about, you know, how I can sleep better at night, or the things that meditation can do to improve my life, or you know, what exactly is going on with farm subsidies, and is that a good thing or a bad thing? Like, it's an opportunity for me to learn, and my general curiosity, I think, comes through in the show. So it's been a lot of fun. It's been, you know, a blast, and we've developed a fantastic audience. I think we have over 1.5 million downloads at this
Great.
point, so
That's great.
people are digging it, and it's been cool.
Yeah, I love that. I mean, you're sharing actually positive,
Yes.
inspirational information, not fear and,
No
you know,
fear.
right,
Yeah.
no fear. So, and then you also have, you and Julie have a downloadable vegan cookbook, is that right?
Yeah, we have a cookbook. It's a e-cookbook. It's called Jai Seed. You can get it on our website, richroll.com. 77 pages of awesome, easy to prepare, family-style recipes that are all plant-based, but hearty. You know, like stick on your bones kind of stuff, like mashed potatoes and things that
Yeah.
kids like.
Yeah.
These are all recipes that Julie developed when I was training to kind of replenish my body when I would get back from a hard session, and also recipes that our kids would like.
Exact, kid friendly is so hot.
Friendly and easy to make. I think there's this idea, if you're eating plant-based, like, oh, it's so complicated, these crazy intricate recipes, because people are trying to recreate the ultimate, you know, lasagna and make it taste exactly like, you know, lasagna, like a normal lasagna. And it's not really about that. It's about taking this bounty of nature and preparing delicious dishes that are still close to their natural state.
Great. I'll have to download that, because my husband and I are always looking for good ideas and kid friendly, you know.
important.
Yeah, to keep it fresh and different. You don't have to eat the same thing. I think that's another misconception about
Right.
eating plant powered, is that it's boring and you eat the same thing.
Grass every day.
Right, or that you can't, you know, as you say, gain muscle, or you turn into some stick figure. So while it is healthy, and I think healthy to help you manage your weight, it can be, you know, have substance to it.
Right.
So what's on the radar for you guys next? What can we look forward to?
So we're working on a cookbook, like a printed hardcover cookbook, and that should be ready or done sometime in the springtime. So we're really excited about that. I'm working on another book. I've got some digital products. One, I have an ultimate guide to plant-based nutrition, which you can find on Mind Body Green, which is like a 3.5-hour video course. And I'm looking to do some more shorter form video courses. And we have a garment line that you can find at richroll.com. It's going to be ready pretty soon. We're launching that, and some nutritional products. So just, you know, all kinds of stuff, all related around this idea of living plant-powered.
Beautiful, very exciting. Well, we look forward to that. And I thank you so very much for sitting down with me today.
Thank you.
Of course. Hopefully our paths will cross again. I'll be following you and your podcast, and I'll be looking for the upcoming cookbook.
Very cool.
All
Well,
right.
as a fellow wellness warrior, we got to stick together, right?
Yes, we do. That's
All
right. Well, we will. We'll do this together.
Cool.
For those of you interested in more information on Rich, please visit his website, richroll.com.